Hi Charlotte, and this is Bookish Mama Blooms. It's February. I haven't filmed for a month maybe. So I thought I'd do a book haul. I've got, I don't know if you can quite see, but I've got a stack of books here that I've kind of collected since Christmas. I don't think I've mentioned any of them on camera before. As you can see, I'm in Idris's room. He is playing on the PlayStation in the front room, so he sat in the yellow chair gaming. And Stephen is out with the gentleman that we look after because he's finally been allowed to go and see his mother in the nursing home that she's in. So as you can imagine, with COVID, there have been huge restrictions on things like that. But the home that she is in has built these amazing pods so that visitors can come and see family members. And I believe, although this is the first time that this has happened now, that there's like a perspex screen between them. So yeah, that's like an amazing thing for the gentleman that we care for, because you think he's seen his mother. I'm wondering if it's twice in a year. I think once in a year. That's a long time, you know. That's not that I want to veer too far off the subject of a book haul, but that's kind of why I get so infuriated when other people are breaking the rules. Are kind of making their own rules up about what they think they, you know, need to do in order to get through it or whatever. Because whilst I think there are, you know, obviously differences in whether you live alone and things like that, in the instance of the gentleman who lives with us, you know, you've got somebody who has a limited understanding of what a pandemic is and a limited understanding as to why he can't go and see his mother. And he's in the care of people who are legally responsible for him. So even if we wanted to, which we don't, we couldn't break the rules because everything we do with him is on paper. So he's really suffered, you know, in this last year, not seeing a person that he lived with, you know, every day for 40 years. So I just get particularly mad when people are kind of doing things like going on play dates, you know, when you don't need to, or even just breaking the rules to see, you know, parents, because I miss my mum and dad, you know, so much, and Idris is an only child and hasn't got anyone to play with. Anyway, I could go on, and, you know, maybe I will in another video, but I get annoyed. So today is a good day because it means that there's something different happening. And it's really rare now for the house to be as quiet as it is right this minute. Idris is like totally into Lego Avengers on the PlayStation. And normally, well, I say normally, but I can't remember what normal was like. We would try and limit how much he's on the PlayStation. But in Wales, the virus levels have gone really quite far down. So they are going to reopen schools after half term for certain age groups, which is his age group, and for limited amounts of time. So he'll be going back to school in just over a week, probably just for a couple of hours a day. And I think because of that, we're just going to let him do what he wants. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've kind of taken that attitude throughout the whole pandemic, but we feel quite, you know, confident about him going back to school. Myself and Stephen, because we are carers, we've had the Pfizer jab. Pfizer? I always want to put a P. We've had that jab. Touch my arm, that's where it went. Right in there. We didn't turn into frogs. My DNA hasn't changed. It does not change your DNA. It's an amazing thing. I feel very, very blessed to have had it. Very conflicted, as I'm a very young person-ish. And you know, actually the gentleman we care for is not actually applicable for having the jab yet, which is, don't get me started, but it is good that me and Stephen have had it. It feels like there's less of a chance that it will get to him, which is the reason we've had it, because we are carers. There's no one to do our job if we become ill, basically. That's unfortunately how the system is stretched at the moment. So we need to be well to look after everybody, and we feel really lucky. And, you know, I feel it's important to mention, if you've had the vaccination, that you're feeling good, which we are, and that, you know, it's a good thing. So anyway, I'm off my high horse. Let's get on to the books. I have recently received Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans Identity. Shouldn't start coughing after talking about. That's just too much talking when I'm not used to talking to anybody. Black on Both Sides, Racial History of Trans Identity by C. Riley Snorton. I saw this on Instagram, but I cannot remember who recommended it. Somebody shared a post of somebody else who recommended it, and it just looks so interesting. And it's all about black men and women, trans men and trans women who have been pioneers, and in so many instances black people are pioneers in things that then white people kind of take over, and then you think they're the ones who are sort of leading movements, and they're not. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. It looks quite dense. It's University of Minnesota Press, so I kind of feel like it is a university, you know, obviously I know it says it is, but sometimes you get press, you know, university presses release something that's a little bit more sort of pop culture, but I think this is a proper textbooky type thing, which is good. I got Jean Valentine's Door in the Mountain, New and Collected Poems, and I got that on a bit of a whim. I don't really know very much about her, but somebody shared a poem of hers on Instagram and I just loved it. And I believe she's recently passed away, which is why it was shared. So I have flicked through and I was like, oh, I'm actually not as in, this was secondhand, I'm not as into the rest of these poems as I was expecting to be, but I did just flick through. So maybe there's one that you can recommend if you've read her. This feels like ages ago that I got this, but I finally got a copy of Freshwater by Akwaeke Emeze. I follow Akwaeke Emeze on Instagram now, and their profile is really, really interesting. And I just feel like I've been left out not reading this, so I decided to get a copy. Now this, I'm really looking forward to reading. This is hot off the press. We Still Here. Pandemic, Policing, Protest and Possibility. If that doesn't draw you in, just that subtitle alone, I don't know what else to say. It's by Marc Lamont Hill. This was recommended by Ariel of She Wants the Diction, who always has like the most interesting books. And it's a little slim copy, but she says it really sort of it introduced sides of like the Black Lives Matter movement and defunding the police and things like that that aren't necessarily being talked about. And you know, we were all supposedly reading books about racism, Black Lives Matter, but I think I'm starting to notice now that there's a lot of the same stuff, and it's almost not radical enough. So, and obviously the idea of the pandemic and policing and protest is a really new combination of things that we could never have foreseen happening. So I'm really excited to read this and kind of expand my thoughts on that. White Negroes, When Cornrows Were in Vogue and Other Thoughts on Cultural Appropriation by Lauren Michele Jackson. I can't remember where I originally saw this. Later on I saw that Ariel had read it. I don't think it was her post that drew my attention to it. I could be wrong, but since buying it, she's read it and she loved it, so that just makes me want to read it even more. I started the first couple of pages, just having a little flick through, and I was instantly blown away. I love anything that's kind of pop culture based. I just feel like you can say so many interesting things based on pop culture, and you don't have to be elitist about things, you know, to get your point across and to talk about philosophy. And of course pop culture is what even people who like to think they're above it, you're still exposed to it, so I think that's a really interesting way to go. So there's, say that it's from, I think she talks about Madonna in the first bit. I would be surprised if someone like Katy Perry isn't mentioned in here. I think that'd be quite interesting. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading that. These are all quite, are these non-fictiony so far? Oh no, there's the Akwaeke one. This is another non-fiction. This is where my head has gone, and actually loads of you have said that non-fiction is where you're headed since the pandemic, so there's obviously something going on, and I'd really love to talk about that in the comments. So if you feel non-fiction inclined, please let me know. The History of Magic, From Alchemy to Witchcraft, From the Ice Age to the Present by Chris Godsen. And it's a history book, so even though I am a bit magic-y and witchy, this is a history book. It's been reviewed by, I can never pronounce his name, Simon Sebag Montefiore. I don't know, I might have made that up. So this is the sort of history side of it. Oh, it's very man. Oh, Violet. There's a lady, which I find interesting just because magic is often associated with women. Anyway, I'm wondering how good this will be. There are a couple of books on magic that were released at the end of last year. and some of them look more occult and some of them look more history. So I've gone for the history end of it, but that might just annoy me, I don't know. Here's another magic-y one that Shan of Storytime very kindly sent me. This is A Spell in the Wild by Alice Tarbuck, A Year and 6 Centuries of Magic. So this is a personal exploration of what magic has meant to Alice, and I think Shan didn't get on with it, but she's not really sure if she read it at the right time. So I'm going to give it a whirl. I'm really interested in the idea of the fact that it's approached seasonally, which I'm guessing by the title. It says here, witches are back. They're feminist, independent, invested in care for the self and the world. That kind of is what that sort of, you know, that way of thinking means to me. Another non-fiction is When Life is Not Peachy, Real Life Lessons in Recovery from Heartache, Loss and Tough Times by Lincolne. Now I got this from Shan and Bert at Storytime, and this looks really, really lovely. So it's got little sections: aim for a steady state, what to do if you panic, memory menu, eat these foods. It's just really, really lovely. Strategies for processing what has happened. Really, really nice. So this is a book I've actually started a little, where that yellow chair is in the front room, we've got a coffee table, although as Idris has pointed out, there's no room for coffee on it. And I'm starting a little pile of books there and a little shelf of books behind that are all kind of books that you dip into and then put back, and this is now forming part of that arrangement. I got for Christmas from Stephen the Almanac, A Seasonal Guide to 2021 by Lia Leendertz. I've had this last year, really loved it. If you've got a garden, I think it's particularly useful, although I don't think it's, if you're interested in folklore, it's also really useful. And this just goes through every month. It tells you when the full moon is, it tells you what to start planting, it gives you a little sort of anecdote. It's got all these gorgeous illustrations. Love it. Oh, this is a big one, I don't think it's going to fit on the pile. I've also got the second in the series of the Library of Esoterica, which Taschen have started making. This is the astrology one. So previously I've had the tarot, and I'm about halfway through that. I'm trying to sort of go through that slowly. That's another sort of dip in, dip out book. The astrology one, I haven't even really peeked at it. Christmas was a write-off, in case you missed my last video. Idris was really poorly, the most ill he's ever been, and then on Christmas Day was actually the day he started to get better, which is just unbelievable timing. But that was the day when, after like 2 weeks of not sleeping and thinking that he was going to have to go to hospital, I finally just went. So I didn't get out by Christmas Day, and I didn't well, I did open my presents, but sort of with a 4-year-old shoving them in my face and pretty much opening them for me. So I haven't even looked inside this beautiful thing, but I'm definitely, I mean, I've fallen for the hype. So they're not stupid, Taschen. They make everything really beautiful, and I'm going to have to get all of them. I don't know what the next one is, actually. I got That Reminds Me by Derek Owusu. I think I got this just before Christmas. And this is Murky Books, which is Stormzy's, the British musician's label. And this is the first book published. And I've actually read this, so I need to do a little wrap up. But I'll save it for that. There's actually 2 books that I have, now that I've started the video, I've realised are not in this pile. I'm trying to think where they are, but I've read them. In fact, I can see one of them is over there. So I'm going to do them in my review video, instead of talking about them twice. Actually, this sort of, no, I'll talk about, this is another one I have actually read, The Sellout, Paul Beatty. So this was the winner of the Booker in 2016, was it? I feel like it was ages ago, but maybe it wasn't that long ago. My mum got me this for Christmas, so I will talk about that in my reviews. This just arrived this week. This is a naughty purchase. Mrs. Death by Selena Godden. And from what I know, this is about Mrs. Death. So she's had enough. She's exhausted from spending an eternity doing her job. And so she just kind of ditches it, and she decides to Wolf Williford, a troubled young writer, is well acquainted with Death, but until now hadn't met Death in person, a black working-class woman who shapeshifts and does her work unseen. Enthralled by her stories, Wolf becomes Mrs. Death's scribe and begins to write her memoirs. Using their desk as a vessel and conduit, Wolf travels across time and place with Mrs. Death to witness deaths of past and present and discuss what the future holds for humanity. I mean, I just... How anybody can think of something that wonderful and just weird, and yeah, I think it's going to be great. This is literally my next read. I just finished a book last night, and I'm trying to do non-fiction, fiction, non-fiction, fiction, so this is going to be my fiction one. And then the last book that I've got to share with you is Marilyn Manhattan, Her Year of Joy by Elizabeth Winder. I got this because I saw it on Sian and Bert's channel. They spoke really highly of it. I believe that Sian has read a book about Sylvia Plath by Elizabeth Winder, and it was really, really good. And this is, I think Bert is planning on reading this, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And that, yeah, like him, I feel like it's lovely to have a Marilyn book that's focused on joy, because so many of them are focused on her death, focused on things that happen with men, focused on her body, loads of things like that. So this will be really interesting, talking about the year she spent in New York when she was honing her craft. There's loads of amazing photos from that year. This photo, it isn't this exact one, but from this series, there's a few of her on this sort of rooftop, and she's leaning over smoking and things like that. For years, when I had my little flat, I lived all by myself, that was the main picture in my flat. Just classic sort of 20-something girl obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. Cliches all round. So yes, those are my hauls. I don't think I've got any other news, because literally nothing happens. I'm busy with work. I've been doing, when this finally goes live, I will put the link in the description box, because you guys might want to do it. But I have been making I don't know if you've ever seen a Victorian paper peep show, but I have been making a template for a Victorian paper peep show, which is one where you unfold it and it's like concertinas, and you look through and you can see a scene. I've been making that so that people can print it out, colour it in, cut it out, stick it together, and have a little walk through Swansea. And it's been a labour of love. If I'd known how difficult it was going to be, and if I wasn't so cocky, I would not have, wouldn't have done it. But you live and learn. Really enjoyed doing it in the end, but it took a lot. And yeah, so I've been doing that. Idris has been doing his school, but not, I'm just sick of it really. I think he's sick of it too. Like, the school is amazing, but it's just not the same as being in the classroom, is it? His hair is crazily long. He's chewing it all the time. Any tips on how to stop a child chewing their hair? When they're a girl, I guess you put them in plaits, but, you know, as gender neutral as I like to be, I don't think his hair would actually stay in plaits, because it's really, there's loads of it, but it's very fine. It would just plop out. My own hair, major issues, major first world problems, because I'm trying to grow out the undercut, not the side cut, sorry, not because I want to get rid of it, but because it's just a bit too high. We just got carried away. Pretty soon it would have been up there. So this is what happens when you do it yourself. So I'm trying to grow it out, and then I want it to be lower, so to start sort of here rather than here, and then I want it to go all the way around, so like a proper undercut. I know, like, this is it's the sort of thing my head is consumed with these days. But I've got to grow it first, you know, because I've got to be able to clip up what I'm not shaving, and it's going to take months, and I'm the most impatient person. So every day I wake up and like this bit here, I don't know if this bit here wants to curl and like stick out. Yeah, I know, massive issues. So if you've had an undercut or a side cut that you've had to grow out, I mean, I think I'm just going to have to wear loads of scarves. And I also just love scrunchies. You know, like a whole lifetime of thinking they were ridiculous. Years of working in Claire's accessories, and I never ever put one in my hair. That in itself is an achievement. And now I'm 37, 38 in a month, and I'm suddenly wearing scrunchies like a 12-year-old. If that isn't what the pandemic does to you, I don't know what is. But they have saved me, because if I tied up in one of those, it sort of covers it. You see what I do? You don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about books. So I'm going to go now. But the next video will maybe be reviews, maybe a vlog. Maybe I'll vlog half term, seeing as, you know, maybe things will be getting back to normal after that. Okay, I hope you guys are all okay. If you've read any of those books, let me know. I know I haven't replied to comments in the last video. I might try and do that today. I get totally wound up about replying to comments because I worry that if I start replying and then something comes up and I don't reply to someone else, they'll get really hurt. So I just don't reply to anybody. Which seems, you know, that is like my modus operandi for pretty much everything. So just deny, deny, deny. I'm really sorry. I've read every single one. I love every single one, and I will try and reply to them today. And please don't be put off from commenting because I am going to try and be a good girl. Okay, take care and I'll see you soon. Bye.